Unhoused Baptist Church in Dallas, Haynes will be officially introduced on Sunday at the organization's national convention in Chicago, Illinois. At least 5 people have been killed in Pennsylvania as a result of flash flooding across the region. Officials in Bucks County made the announcement Sunday, adding that 2 children are still missing. Local and federal authorities are assisting in the search and recovery efforts. The National Weather Service says the area saw more than 4.5 inches of rain in just 2 hours Saturday evening. Storms have ravaged parts of the Northeast in recent weeks. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. Plus, we guarantee they'll fit. Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
This could be a monumental week for Magic Johnson. On Thursday, there's a very strong probability that Magic will become a part owner of the Washington Commanders. The NFL's 30 owners have scheduled a special league meeting for Thursday in Minneapolis. The main agenda item is expected to be a vote to formally approve the sale of the Commanders to billionaire Josh Harris. Magic is part of the Harris Group. Outgoing Commanders owner Dan Snyder agreed to sell the franchise to Harris's group for $6.05 billion, the highest price tag in NFL history for a franchise. Magic is on the doorstep of his first NFL ownership. The NFL training camp countdown continues. The Chargers open up July 26th in Costa Mesa. First day of camp for the Rams is July 29th at UC Irvine. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Two years ago, on Juneteenth 2021, KBLA Talk 1580 launched with a promise to give disenfranchised fellow citizens a voice in current political, economic, social, and cultural issues with an empowering, sustainable, and restorative language.
Everybody's got a little light under the sun, under the sun, under the sun.
As we enter our 3rd year, we are delighted that KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerges as the talk station of choice for African American listeners. In a vigorous public opinion research study, the 2023 African American Media Issue Survey finds that for the 2nd consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 remains the most trusted, credible, and reliable media source in Southern California for African Americans and beyond. Furthermore, 80% of those surveyed agree that outlets like KBLA Talk 1580 provide honest and authentic content about the issues most important to the Black community directly from Black journalists who understand the issues that need to be addressed. At KBLA Talk 1580, we remain committed to curating conversations that matter to you. Thank you for your continued support. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. The station that sounds like the city looks. KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
First things first.
First things first. first. It's the DU General, Money P. I'ma put you up on the schedule. 6 to 9, 8 weekdays, not too unsettle you. Let's go. We got a lot to talk about, so much to pedal through. Unapologetically progressive. Tune to KBLA 1580 to get the mess. We're your ancestors' favorite radio station. First black on talk radio, left side of the nation. Me and Dominique DePrima go way back. Tag Smiley making sure the station stays black. Discussing all the issues in our community. We're hosted black and brown and others find unity. So let's talk about it. Maybe we can improve it. Digital underground, always down with the movement. So we tune in. The first things first with the queen of Black Talk Radio, Dominique DePrima. Go sis.
First things first.
KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominique DePrima. This show is called First Things First, and my first thing every single day, giving thanks, giving praises, asking for blessings from the Most High, asking for the blessings of the ancestors and the elders, and let's go. We do have a lot to talk about. You know how we do. Hour one, we do local, left coast. Hour two, we go national, international, and beyond. And in the third hour, we do a deep dive with maybe a person of interest, maybe somebody that you find to be famous, or we go into a hot topic, an important topic of conversation. And today is no exception. We'll be talking with Judge Maybelline Ephraim in hour three. Right now, though, it is my honor to have live in the studio. So, hey, hop on the YouTubes, KBLA 1580 on YouTube, the founder and co-executive director of the Los Angeles Community Action Network. It's a grassroots organization working to ensure the human right to housing, health, and security are upheld in Los Angeles. He's been a community organizer in LA since 1992. Pete White, good morning.
Hey, Dominique DePrima, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on KBLA 1580 AM.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you in, and I know it's got to be an especially busy time for LA Can and you, because we do have a new administration in the city of Los Angeles, and there's a lot of new things being tried as far as your mission of making sure folks have the right to housing.
That's right. I mean, you're absolutely right, Dominique. We have the very first black female mayor in the city of Los Angeles, and someone that the organizing community knows really, really well. I mean, a lot of folks know her for her time in the State House and in the federal Capitol. However, folks on the ground knew Karen Bass as an organizer and a public health nurse. And so bringing in this new leadership, this new sort of authentic Los Angeles leadership, for sure comes with great praise, but also some challenges, right?
Yeah.
It's oftentimes people don't really understand. It's hard when you have a friend inside. Madam Mayor called when she was thinking about taking office here in Los Angeles, and my very first question for her was why, right? Like why? Like, you know, and her answer to me was, I don't want to go backwards, right? And I have to do something. I was like, yeah, it's a thankless job. And it's also a job that places you right under the microscope, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes you're going to be at heads with friends.
Yeah.
So I've been busy.
Yeah, that's true. You're going to be bumping heads because there's so many different interest groups which are part of the community and also part of the government and the business interest groups that have to be juggled. That said, I mean, the alternative is, you know, it's tough, right? Like you said, it's tough when you have friends that are elected. It's also tough when you have people that are blatantly anti-black and
right.
pro-business, I guess, housing, I'll say, affordability. Right. So how do you, well, first let me start, since it's so early on
we got right into it, didn't we, Dominique?
It's a Monday morning. What's good to you? How do you see what's positive? How would you start folks off this Monday morning?
You know what? I think what's positive to me, Dominique, is everything is possible with us. Everything is possible with Black LA. We remain the soul and the backbone, the conscience of this country, right? BLM Los Angeles just celebrated its 10th year, our 10th year anniversary, and I saw a piece by I think it was Erica Smith in the LA Times.
I'm glad you brought that up.
And aside from there being a whole lot of irony in Erica writing that piece, I think the pieces that's missing to me is the fact remains clear. The title made it appear like, is there a movement? Is there not a movement? The reality is every day that people are in these streets, right, crying Black Lives Matter, calling for the end of police abuse, calling for a wholesale giving back of resources to community, right? The protests, the budget fights, that's all movement work, right? And so there's no question that the movement continues to persist, right? We have to get away from this sort of this Hollywood version of movements that suggests it's like civil rights movement, right? That every day for 10 years, there's going to be thousands and thousands of people in the streets. That is just not how movements work.
It's not how people work.
And it's not how people work, right?
I mean, yeah. So to me, it was, I like Erica Smith as a person, but to me, it was a clickbait title.
That's right.
Is this the beginning of the end for Black Lives Matter? Really? You really asking that question, or you just want clicks? Because honestly, there are now 32 chapters, I think, all over this country, and there's now a prison chapter. There's chapters all around the world. And to your point, Pete White, we don't see people in these streets every day, but a lot of those folks were not the hardcore organizers. They were people that were caught up in the movement and felt that it was time for justice, but were not in some kind of long-term dedicated relationship with a movement.
That's right. That's right. And so anyone who read the article, this is not a shot at Erica Smith, but it is a shot at that title, right? And it is a reminder that as long as people are in these streets, as long as Black lives still matter, as long as chapters continue to grow, the movement is live and well. I think the clarion call to our listeners is to make sure you support these chapters.
Yeah.
Make sure you join these chapters. Make sure whatever skill you have to bring to the table that can benefit Black lives, that you place that in a direction. So even if it's not in a chapter, as long as you are doing work to better Black lives, you are part of this movement.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. I can't resist asking you, why do you say it's ironic that Erica Smith would write this article?
I mean, the clickbait. So for me, and again, I don't know that Erica has control over titles, right?
Right,
but
that's a good point.
The fact is that the LA Times runs a title like that from a Black woman, right? And so it's always this attempt at creating contention in the Black community where none doesn't necessarily have to exist. And it's not the media's duty, to me, to fan those flames. And so that's where it was like dripping thick with irony. I wish I could have said, I wish I was shocked and surprised.
Yeah.
I was not.
No.
Right? We've been around long enough now. We ain't going to talk about how long we've been around, but we've been around long enough to see these cycles.
Yeah, that's true.
But I also think that some of our journalists and others, Dominique, and I can say this to you, they have to be more fierce in their work. Like folks need to know, like a journalist can go to legal at the LA Times and say, I don't want my name under that title. And they can fight for that title. And I know the LA Times is laying off lots of people, but at some point you have to take that stand where you stand as well.
Yeah, we got to channel Ida B. Wells.
Yes.
That's what we got to do every day. Pete White is my guest. You're welcome to join 800-920-1580 if you got a question, commentary, conversation. If you were one of the folks that was out there braving the heat for what was actually an incredible day of celebration of 10 years of movement, you can join us as well. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Sprinklers in the Rain and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Shop end-of-season deals during the truckload event at Lowe's. Right now, save on major appliances and get an additional 10% off in-store clearance appliances. Plus, take up to 70% off select vanities, like the Allen & Roth Vanity Combo. Was $1,399, now $409. Get great deals now. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 7/19. Exclusions apply. While supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for details.
She's so smooth. So I'm interrupting my own shower to remind you to treat your skin like the queen she is with Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash, packed with Olay's highest level of vitamin B3 complex. It's so moisturizing that it will give you visibly smoother, head-turning skin in just 14 days. People wondering, how'd she get so smooth? Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash. Also, try Olay Hyaluronic Body Lotion.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DePrima right now.
So Black Lives Matter celebrates 10 years. You were part of the host committee, right?
Yeah.
Or one of the organizers. I know you've been a long-time supporter. How did you feel about the day?
I felt the day was great.
Yeah.
I think hundreds of Black people in Leimert Park, to hear directly from impacted people, to hear from families, to hear from a Cornel West and a Chuck D, like folks who are actually on the ground, I think is very inspirational. Here in Black Los Angeles, the fact that it was held in historic Leimert Park, right? I'm an Angelino, and, by hook or crook, Leimert Park is never going to be a space for Black people in name only. I go back to 5th Street Dicks and all of those days.
I did a broadcast from there once. Yeah,
right,
for real, right?
And so when I think about Africatown, when I think about Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, when I think about Ben over there at Chaos, there's just the heartbeat of Black folks remain in Leimert. And so it was the perfect place for such the 10-year anniversary gathering.
Yeah, I mean, it was really hot, but Black folks still came out. And I think it's such a big space, when you go into all the rooms with the workshops, they would be packed. Yep. Partly people getting out of the heat, but there was a lot of serious conversation going on and debate and discussion about what we need to do. People were getting massages. The Children's Village was packed all day, and no one could believe it was all free, all the rides and everything. So I felt like it was a really positive day. And I do think it was a miracle that it went as smoothly as it did, considering the chaos of Juneteenth and the subsequent rumor mongering and such by folks in the media.
That's right.
And in law enforcement.
That's right.
Because I call them how I see them.
That's right. You come from a long line of calling them how you see them people. So I wouldn't think you do anything else. If y'all watching this, y'all should know that.
So I just want to get your assessment. Yeah, and I do think, if you were expecting 2020, 100,000 people, you would maybe look at it as a letdown. But if you were looking for a great day of celebration, people really focused on movement. There was no Rihanna. It was Cornel West and Chuck D.
That's right.
And, Greg Carr and Dr. Abdullah and Sabrina Fulton, Trayvon Martin's mom. And the centering of the families, I thought, was powerful. Right. So many impacted families.
I mean, I think something that we were just chatting about, even in that LA Times article, when you think about the work that Melina Abdullah has put in on the ground here it's yeoman's labor, right? This sister has carried a lot of this work, has carried the inspiration. People have done the work. She's done work and carried the inspiration. I think about Patrice, who I come up with as well, right? And in that article, when we saw the art, for folks who didn't read or have not read the article, please do. They sort of lay out BLM grassroots and BLM Foundation's leadership as being the same thing, as having the same credibility, as doing the same sorts of work, and that's just not true, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because objectivity is what outlets like the LA Times claim.
That's right.
So you do your research and you see that Shalomia Bowers has never been at a Black Lives Matter protest ever.
That's right.
Was not part of the founding membership, no boots on the ground. And the quote is that he wants to now disrupt philanthropy.
Right.
That's his mission.
Right.
And you give that the same credibility as a Melina Abdullah.
Right.
You know, that to me, that means you didn't do your research.
No, that's right. And we have to be, we got to be critical. And if Erica Smith, if you're listening, we have to be critical with our own folks as well.
Well, yeah, I give her credit. She showed up. I saw her there. She wasn't writing from afar. She didn't have on binoculars. Like she was actually walking around. I don't know how late she stayed, because it got a lot more packed as the day went on.
That's right.
Nobody in LA gets up and goes to Leimert Park before noon, but okay.
But you should know that. If you're writing this story, you know that already.
And she also, I think she did make a couple of good points. I mean, as far as outlining the chapters, that the chapters march on, and that, and she tried to make the distinction. When she mentioned the lawsuit, she said that it didn't resolve anything, and I think that was a great point.
Yep.
Because it did not.
That's correct.
So,
that's correct.
But this idea that grassroots, which is not a separate organization, it is Black Lives Matter, should kiss and make up with people that stole their resources and their social media platforms, and that's the answer to movement. I think it's a little simplistic.
I mean, and I think other people have to. I think people who don't understand what's going on also have to know that a lot of this fight is about the name, right? It's about the name, right? I think a lot of listeners will think that this is a fight just about resources. And it is a fight about resources insofar as resources are needed to sustain these 32 chapters. This is true. But what's most important, and it's almost like Ike and Tina Turner wanted her name back, right? Because she understood the currency of that name.
Yeah.
And there is a currency in Black Lives Matter. And so this fight is largely not to have that name dishonored and used in a way that doesn't benefit Black folks. And so the mission from the get-go, from the gate, was never about disrupting philanthropy. It was never about
what even is that?
Disrupting wealth twice stolen. That's what we call philanthropy. So yes, everything is in a name, as Malcolm said.
Yeah, Black Lives Matter, and if you read the Shalomia Bowers GNF missives, they sound like Democratic Party fundraising emails, which is pretty sad. But anyways, moving right on. So. I mean, we get so many conflicting reports. Speaking of the reporting around what's happening with the crisis of the unhoused here in California, and I think there's levels to it, right?
That's right.
So give me your big picture right now.
Yeah. I mean, Dominique, you and I have talked about this for a number of years, and I always appreciate coming in here and talking to you. Oftentimes you pull me, you need these voices that pull you in the right direction as well. But I will tell you, the core of the issue remains the same. The data remains the same. Affordability, housing availability, and poverty remains to be the drivers of houselessness, right? The majority of folks, 70%, 69 to 70%, are houseless because of one of those or all of those three things. Now, that other 30% is a population of folks who are, duly diagnosed, suffering with mental illness and substance abuse, as well as those other three things that I just talked about. One of the things that when I started the organization, Dominique, folks would always say, yo, that's a great thing you doing, Brother Pete. That's charity work, right? That's great. So, like, someone has to do it. Like, we only see black folks out there, so I'm glad we see black leadership. And I would correct folks and say, this isn't an issue of charity. This is an issue of justice, right? This is a black issue of justice, economic justice, gender justice, right? Racial justice, right? And so it's always, for me, the work has always been done from this justice lens. And so it's easy when I talk about it in that way. It's easy, like when you read the my bio, it's easy to see my connection to housing. And then that connection leads to jobs. And then that connection leads to families as to what we're organizing for. I think one of the good things right now, Dominique, is that Mayor Bass picked up our platform. Oh, it's hot in here. She's picked up our platform around figuring out a new model of social housing in Los Angeles, right? And so you hear a lot that the mayor talks about now, buying hotels and motels.
Yes.
She's also talking about turning over, and this is something we've been pushing for decades, turning over publicly owned assets for public good. What does that mean? Turning over vacant lots, turning over buildings that can be used for housing. All of those things are make sense policies that only a black woman, right, who's close to community would come in office in her first 100 days and sort of get behind, right? But I would also say that it's also an outgrowth of listening, right? So she came, she listened, she wanted to figure out what those best practices were. She wanted to go to folks who've been doing this work, and she began to outline an agenda that matched it. I think the thing that Madam Mayor didn't realize is bureaucracy dies slow, right?
Yeah.
And so a great idea, and then the implementation of the great idea, even if you're an insider, is light years apart, right? And so there are many things, that Mayor Bass felt like, I'm the mayor, I can go in and make happen right now. She ran right into the barricades because you have bureaucrats who have been in there 20, 30 years, and they will say to the mayor and to your elected, that's just not how business works, right? And what does this mean for us on the outside? It means that we have to continue to organize and build power to hold this whole system accountable. So that means putting pressure on the mayor or your council member, but also figuring out how to disrupt a bureaucracy that's really hell-bent on keeping business as usual. It's funny. Were you going to hop in?
No, I'm just looking at the clock to make sure we hit our bottom of the hour news and traffic, because I get caught up in listening to what you're saying. Yeah.
No, so I was just, so I guess what I'm saying is it is imperative that we understand that it's going to take a lot more. And we've been, folks have been talking about this for generations, but it's going to take a lot more than just waiting on this person, this elected or this selected person to be our salvation. We are our salvation.
Yeah, and we're the only reason she's here. I mean, and another thing, we talked about this before. If we would have been marching more while Barack Obama was president, he could have gotten more done.
Right there. I mean, 100%. Like, of course, we were waiting on that great outgoing black moment from Barack, because he sounded like King. He had a little Reverend Wright flair. We just knew it was there somewhere. But what we forgot in that equation is that we needed to apply a whole lot more pressure. When we were letting up off the gas, we should have been putting our foot on the accelerator.
That's right.
Right? And it's imperative. I think that the one thing that you get now with this mayor, it's both bad and good. So for all heads, it's good to understand she comes from organizing. So she knows how to disrupt your organizing, right? She's never going to be a Garcetti or someone who doesn't talk to you, who's running out the back door. She's going to come talk to you, right? But she's also going to analyze the power. She's going to analyze the power you have, the power the police has, and she's going to try and figure out how to reconcile or do as much as she can within these various power vacuums. What that means for us in this moment, we've got to organize more
and build
not
power.
Less,
absolutely,
and build more power.
Pete White is my guest. News, traffic, and sports is next, and then the conversation continues on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Georgia, African-American Herschel Walker still has millions in his campaign account. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reports the Georgia Republican is holding on to more than $4 million left over from his run for U.S. Senate in 2022. More than $1 million was donated to charities. More than $1 million was donated to charities and GOP groups since April. Walker was accused earlier this year of shifting $500,000 from the account to one of his businesses. This is the first Monday in over 6 decades that members of the Actors Union and the Writers Guild of America are on strike at the same time. The SAG-AFTRA walkout took effect Thursday at 12 midnight, while the WGA strike has been ongoing for months now. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. Plus, we guarantee they'll fit. Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
This could be a monumental week for Magic Johnson. On Thursday, there's a very strong probability that Magic will become a part owner of the Washington Commanders. The NFL's 30 owners have scheduled a special league meeting for Thursday in Minneapolis. The main agenda item is expected to be a vote to formally approve the sale of the Commanders to billionaire Josh Harris. Magic is part of the Harris Group. Outgoing Commanders owner Dan Snyder agreed to sell the franchise to Harris's group for $6.05 billion, the highest price tag in NFL history for a franchise. Magic is on the doorstep of his first NFL ownership. The NFL training camp countdown continues. The Chargers open up July 26th in Costa Mesa. First day of camp for the Rams is July 29th at UC Irvine. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lathan and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here is just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, you know. Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and they're putting their money where their mouth is at. So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community, and you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase, and give them another look. If I go to another institution, I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right, Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here.
KBLA Talk 1580 stands for Unity and Healing. African Focus Incorporated is a nonprofit organization based in California that focuses on the growth and well-being of Africans all around the world. Their mission is to promote the well-being of people of African descent through knowledge and appreciation of one another by building a bridge of love and understanding. African Focus Incorporated strives for cultural, educational, and economic growth. They're the organization behind the African Family Induction Ceremony, African Goodwill Awards, African Focus Trailblazer Tours, African Dance Competition, and Showcase Los Angeles, Family Day, Good News Windows Microfinance Project, and more. To volunteer, travel with African Focus, or to attend one of their community building events, please call 310-676-7730. That's 310-676-7300. Or visit AfricanFocus.org. This is a diaspora-wide community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
To my hometown, my community. Some of you have known me my whole life. Do you notice anything different about the kids in the neighborhood? Ever paid attention? You might start with gifts, money, attention. These are signs. Child trafficking is happening right here in this town. So don't just watch through the window. Pay attention. Because the more we know, the more we'll all know to say no. Learn the signs to look for and how to help at no-to-say-no.com.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Pete White, he's executive director of LA Community Action Network. And wow, a lot of stuff. I wish sometimes that you could hear the conversation that goes on during news, traffic, and sports. But just talking about this idea of houselessness and how it shows up in every different community, that alone presents part of the challenge, right, of fixing it.
That's right. I mean, back in the day, a couple of things, a couple of realities, a couple of myths. Back in the day, Angelenos thought houselessness only existed in Skid Row, right? They were like, that's a Skid Row problem. Even though you saw houselessness in other places and informal settlements in other places, people thought that was a downtown Los Angeles.
But honestly, I didn't really see it in South LA for my first 15 years.
And you know what's funny? And I was coming there next. That's because we get down in here together. South Los Angeles, South Central Los Angeles has always had, even back in the day, more houseless folks than Skid Row. The difference between Skid Row and South Central Los Angeles was the placement of services, right? And so, like, during Yvonne Brathwaite, I'm dating us here, but during Yvonne Brathwaite Burke's tenure, there was this coalition called the Second District Coalition, and it was a coalition of black organizations, some mom and pop substance abuse organizations, that was fighting to get the same amount of resources that was going to this crisis on the west side, right? Like, so Santa Monica always had lots of resources going that way. And so in South Central Los Angeles, we had a lot of houseless people, right, living in alleyways,
So we just didn't have the tent encampment. Yeah, so people were couch surfing, or
that's right.
It wasn't visible, is what you're saying, because I've been a South LA resident for 23 years, and I have never seen what I've seen in the last 5 years.
But now it's changed, right? And so now,
now they're shipping people into South LA.
No, that's right.
Because all of a sudden I see all these homeless white people, which we never, ever had. I'm like, oh, so the gentrifiers brought their houseless cousins? I mean, what's really going on right now?
No, so we're going to get to the shipping. But before we get to the shipping, it has changed. It is now a defining feature in every community across Los Angeles, right? And so now no matter where you go, you'll see an informal settlement, because the crisis is getting worse. I don't know if people just saw the LA Times article last week that showed yet another 10% increase in houselessness. And we always challenge those numbers because empirically the ways in which they count houseless folks is always going to be an undercount. But the fact that 10% increase this year, 10% increases over the last few years has equaled in the last 6 years like an 80% increase in the crisis. Now, to put a finer point on why we're beginning to see houseless people everywhere, and so Loyola Marymount, they just ran they ran a study about houselessness, and the study was about United for Los Angeles. That was the developers tax, ULA, right? Which everyone passed, and that was a great thing that we passed because we need those resources to build housing. But when they did this research, they polled voters, and this isn't something new. They always poll voters for these research projects, 1,300 voters, of which 470 of those voters were renters. So, the large majority, 2/3 homeowners, the others were renters. The specific questions around renters that piqued my interest was this, right? The fact that over the last 12 months, 50% of Asian renters had problems paying their rent.
Wow.
52% of white renters had problems paying their rent. 53% of Latino renters had problems paying their rent, and 63% of black folks, which which should be wow, but because this problem disproportionately has impacted us for decades, had problems paying their rent. At the same time that this was acknowledged, it was also acknowledged that folks were now miraculously, like some of this NIMBYism was going away. So people were willing to bring ADUs into their communities. Folks were willing to bring low-income housing, whatever that means, into their communities. Folks were willing to bring houseless shelters within a mile of their communities. And if you just read those stats on its face, you'd be like, is this charity? What's people really going through? Like, why this rapid change? This rapid change in acceptance. The rapid change in acceptance is because the proximity to the issue has shifted.
Like people are getting that, but for the grace of God, there go I vibe.
That's right. And more people than not know somebody who's houseless.
Right.
Right? When you got 50% Asian on up, that's very different. That's a very different demographic.
Right. Other folks are catching up to our levels.
That's right.
And not that it's not still worse for black people.
That's right.
But it's getting worse for others.
For everybody.
So their empathy increases.
That's right. Their empathy increases. But there's also, and we're not into the oppression Olympics, but we're never going to shy away from the fact that structural racism continues to persist and continues to hold black people back. But I also think it's an opportunity. Like, and you know what I liken it to, Dominique, you from Kier. And so for decades, the penalty for using cocaine or crack for the black community was prison, right? It was prison for addicts. But in the last 5 years, addiction has become a public health crisis. Why? Because white folks and others aren't to be jailed for an addiction. And I think the same thing when I think about this shift in proximity. I also think there's potential strategies that we can employ that can get more housing, that can get more resources.
I mean, the article in the LA Times about how really it's the elders. A lot of this is the elders that are being priced out of housing.
That's right. I mean, you're looking at elders, it wasn't just elders, it was elders,
and the
some
disabled.
who had pensions and disabled and who were retired who could no longer afford housing. And
Insanity.
that's sad when we can't take care of, first it remains able-bodied folks. Then it's the youth, right? And now it's the elders. What does that mean? That means it's everybody, right?
Right.
And that we need a Marshall Plan yeoman's effort to house everybody. I think the good news is that there's a constitutional amendment, folks should look this up, battle going on called AC-10. And what AC-10 is a push towards having in the California Constitution an amendment that guarantees the right to housing, right? Now, that doesn't mean, so a lot of people, when people hear housing is a human right and these things, that doesn't mean that tomorrow we're going to go out and build houses for everybody. It doesn't mean that. But what it means is if there's I'm with you, but if there's a constitutional amendment, it means that we have to go back and look at the policies and codes on the book that stand in the way of our ability to provide housing for everyone. And so that can change funding, that can change policy, that can change sort of the ways in which gentrification is fueled, unlike many will say, not by the market, but by government, right? It could change the ways in which that happens. It could make sure we earmark resources toward housing. It could make us look at budgets where we continue to give police money for every social issue. We could start extracting that money and putting that money into things that really make us safe. Housing being amongst the top of that list.
Right. So I have a lot of questions. I don't know if I'm going to get them all in before you get out of here, but you said you'd circle back to shipping and the moving around of folks. And it seems like, there's now an emphasis, put everybody in South LA.
That's right. So, I mean, and that's one of those things that we need to talk with the mayor about, right? Because a lot of the properties that the mayor is finding is in South Central Los Angeles. It is paramount that when we look for properties, when we buy hotels, when we look for places for people to be, that we keep people close to where they are. One thing that most people don't know, Dominique, and most of the listeners probably don't know, is that 80% of houseless people come from the cities and municipalities that they're in, right? So this
Right.
idea
Yeah.
that we shipping in people because it's fun to be houseless, no.
Yeah, and people think because it's warm in California
right.
and we're liberal. But
always
the data
been
don't bear that out.
The data doesn't bear that out. 80% come from here. On top of that 80%, a lot of folks who are houseless in the communities in which they come from.
And they want to stay where they
And
come.
they want to stay where they
I think
where
the
they
mayor
come
is aware of that. I mean, I had a conversation with her about it, but it's a lot more expensive to buy a hotel in Sherman Oaks than in South LA. What do you think about converting malls, these underutilized malls where you already have plumbing and electricity? Is that something that should and could happen?
And that is something that could. We should have been doing that already. Right?
Commercial properties?
Commercial properties all day long.
Really?
And the city, the city of Los Angeles owns some of that property. And so anything that can be converted in Los Angeles, we have an ordinance called the Adaptive Reuse Ordinance that allows business properties to be converted into housing, right? And so we need to get that ordinance in full effect. Now, in downtown Los Angeles, when they were going after those old office buildings because they wanted to make lofts, there was a high utilization rate of adaptive reuse. But we need to do the same. We need to place that same fervor in these other areas. When I think about areas here right on the east side, right? I said here right on the east side, we on the west side. But when I think about those areas around like Main and Slauson, there's a lot of that old warehouse space that's sitting empty. And of course, it's sitting empty now, but South Central Los Angeles is getting gentrification sexy. We should go in there and get as much of that as possible. And the last thing I say, Dominique, is the one thing that we've never had when we talk about leadership on this issue. And I think I know this mayor is here for this. We need one, truth telling. We need two, for leadership to say exactly what the budget is, how much money we have, and how many units can be actually built or preserved with that number.
Right, or repurposed.
Absolutely, with that number. Because then this whole idea that, this policy or that policy is going to miraculously solve the issue will go out the window. It's going to be here with us for a minute.
Talking with Pete White, LA Community Action Network. We'll get to these phone calls. Also want to ask you about the persistent view that folks don't want to be housed. That when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Have you heard about Lendistry? Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered right here in LA. Once you've started your business, Lendistry provides flexible financing options starting at $50,000 to help you access the affordable capital needed to grow. Whether financing is needed to increase working capital, acquire a business, purchase inventory and equipment, or refinance debt, Lendistry has a solution for you. Lending products range from traditional business term loans and non-revolving lines of credit to SBA 7A loans and commercial real estate financing. Lendistry's pre-application process is simple and does not impact your credit score. Visit lendistry.com/KBLA to learn more and to get started with an application right from the website.
For adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy, now there's Skyrizi, risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months, and Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Nothing in me go hand in hand. Nothing on my skin, that's my new place. Nothing is everyday.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, you could achieve 90% clearer skin. Ask your doctor about the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
It's Dominique DePrima. Did you know that you can actually buy a home without making a 20% down payment? Having a larger down payment usually does have some advantages, like you won't have mortgage insurance and you can get lower monthly payments. But there are different types of loans that might be a fit for your situation depending on what's going on with you, some of which have little or no down payment. Whatever your financial goals are, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. I'm Dominique DePrima for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're talking with Pete White, Executive Director of LA Community Action Network. A lot of people concerned about these issues. A lot of people, this concern and worry, but no action. Can folks support what you're doing? Can they join your organization 100%. If they want to get, make a difference in this area?
No, 100%. Just like the conversation with Black Lives Matter, Los Angeles earlier, I feel like it's not enough just to be upset or to be confused. I'm like, link up with an organization. Definitely link up. You can link up with LA CAN, the Los Angeles Community Action Network. You can find us on all social channels, LA CAN Network. We have lots of things going on, Dominique. We have cultural programs. We have health and wellness programs. We're actually building our very first development called Eco Hoods in South Central Los Angeles that y'all didn't see Dominique's eyes. Lit up. Yep. I'm definitely going to talk more about that. And our cultural department, I don't know if folks watch America's Got Talent, but we just made it to the finals, the Freedom Singers, because we believe that arts and culture has got to be infused in this movement to bring people together. Yes. And so we want everybody to watch this season. The biggest thing people ask is like, so why did y'all do that? Why did y'all go on there? And my short answer to that is it's less about the music and the culture. It's more about the conversation. It's more about having an ability to reach people who are oftentimes so divided on the politics, right? It was Nina Simone who said it's an artist's duty to reflect the times as they see it, right? And so for us as artists, we believe that we can have a whole different kind of conversation. So it was kind of funny for us being on NBC, talking about houselessness, talking about policing, and talking about solutions on a show that was just supposed to be about magic and other things, right? And moving middle America. And so for us, lots of cultural projects that hopefully aid in the organizing and the power building. And so we're looking for folks who, whatever those skills are, if the skills is just coming in and giving a hand up, bring those skills. But understand when you come through the door, leadership development and some political development is going to be in your life. And some myth busting, right, is going to be right there for you to make you a better person.
Absolutely. And I want to bust a couple myths when we come forward. Yep. Pete White has been kind enough to agree to stay with us after the Mindfulness Monday, our Mindful Mondays with Sahar Ali. And so I guess there's a few of these questions and myths we really do need to get to. And so we'll do that when we come forward. We'll start with what I raised, which is even people that I know that are working within the system to get folks housed believe that many people do not want housing. They want to live on the streets. Get your comments on that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you looking to steer your career in a new direction? Driving for Culver City Bus can be your ticket to a long-lasting career with excellent benefits and paid training. Culver City Bus is looking for customer service and safety-minded bus operators to join the growing team. Culver City Bus offers on-the-job training starting at $19.10 per hour, uniform allowance, and health benefits. Culver City Bus is a great employer. Let Culver City Bus connect you with an essential service job. If you enjoy driving, seek real opportunities for career advancement, and passionate about making a difference in the community, then you are invited to join the Culver City Bus team. Start your journey today by submitting an application at culvercity.org/job. For more info, visit culvercitybus.com or call live customer service operators at 310-253-6500.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, could potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
I'm James Alexander, a proud member of AARP. 1967, I was 17. That spring, my friends, the Barcades, and I made Soulfinger. It was a hit. Number 3 on the charts. That summer, we became the Great Otis Redding's Band. First gig, the famed Apollo. That fall, we toured. That winter found me in a morgue identifying the bodies of my bandmates and Otis Redding. My music and their memories bring me joy. The Barcades forever.
What would you call a joy that is as solemn as it is sweet and knows no bounds? A joy that's beautifully rooted in soul and resilience. This is Black joy, a joy that reflects pride and honor despite every challenge. AARP believes the power of Black joy is limitless, and we celebrate this joy supreme. Join us in celebrating Black joy at aarp.org/blackcommunity.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
So glad you're Mondaying with me, Pete White, Community Action Network. We can follow you on all the socials, I know. I already do, but I can't remember your address.
LA Can Network. So LA Can Network on all social channels, that's where we are. And it is so good to be here with you doing Monday morning, Dominique.
Yeah, so it makes it feel like maybe a Wednesday or a Thursday. Anyway.
I don't know. Does that mean, I don't know what
that's
that means.
That's a compliment. It's a compliment. It's taking the sting out of my Monday. But look, P. White, talk to me about this. I even have a couple friends that work in houseless services that say that there's a lot of folks that just don't want to be off the streets. They don't want to go into short-term housing. They don't want to go into shelters because, the problems with shelters. They don't want to go into single rooms or, other kinds of group housing because there's rules and other things like that. Actually, I've heard that from some houseless people that call in here too.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. So the very first thing is, I've been doing this since the 90s. I've met one sister who was suffering from severe either paranoia or truths around the government that just never went in. She would be the one person that I know that never accepted housing. One person. The other thing, though, I think that's important to note when people say this is, well, the first thing is, picture that, imagine that. Do you really believe that people just woke up one day and said, my goal in life is to be houseless? I don't believe that, right? When I look and see the pathway to houselessness, right? When you see this story about seniors, this is something I wrote about 2 decades ago. The pathways for the Black community into houselessness was deindustrialization, right? Was welfare reform, was a prison industrial complex. Like these were decisions that drove. And then before that, of course, everything around racial segregation and all of these things, right? Don't want to get away from your question, but I want to sort of pat it a bit. The thing that I know is this, Dominique. I've not met a person that says, I'm never going in. I've not met that person. But the other thing I think that happens when we have these conversations is that people, and this is what we're led to believe that this resource actually exists, that there's actually a unit for every person out there, that there's actually a shelter bed for every person out there. And the reality is there is not, right? Anytime affordable housing goes up in any community, that list to get in that affordable housing is sucked up immediately, right? Immediately. And so the fact that folks in homeless services are saying people just really don't want to go in, I think you also have to interrogate what that means. Like, on its face, people just don't want to go in. Sounds good until you figure out, all right, so is this person a family? Does this person have a family? Does this person have pets, right? Does this person have other things that they need, right, to make their lives whole to go
right,
in
and also,
if a unit exists?
And right. And also, would you go into the spot that's being offered to that person? That's what I ask myself. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Georgia, African-American Herschel Walker still has millions in his campaign account. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reports the Georgia Republican is holding on to more than $4 million left over from his run for U.S. Senate in 2022. More than $1 million was donated to charities. More than $1 million was donated to charities and GOP groups since April. Walker was accused earlier this year of shifting $500,000 from the account to one of his businesses. This is the first Monday in over 6 decades that members of the Actors Union and the Writers Guild of America are on strike at the same time. The SAG-AFTRA walkout took effect Thursday at 12 midnight, while the WGA strike has been ongoing for months now. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. Plus, we guarantee they'll fit. Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
This could be a monumental week for Magic Johnson. On Thursday, there's a very strong probability that Magic will become a part owner of the Washington Commanders. The NFL's 30 owners have scheduled a special league meeting for Thursday in Minneapolis. The main agenda item is expected to be a vote to formally approve the sale of the Commanders to billionaire Josh Harris. Magic is part of the Harris Group. Outgoing Commanders owner Dan Snyder agreed to sell the franchise to Harris's group for $6.05 billion, the highest price tag in NFL history for a franchise. Magic is on the doorstep of his first NFL ownership. The NFL training camp countdown continues. The Chargers open up July 26th in Costa Mesa. First day of camp for the Rams is July 29th at UC Irvine. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations. And we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.